Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the Business Brunch. Today we're talking about hypnotic leadership. Ooh, get ready to be spooked, everyone. My name's Sarah Farmer. I'm an executive coach, and I'm joined by my two co-hosts, Vanessa and Melinda, who will just say hello in just a minute, and the fabulous Tom Phillips, who will be leading the charge today. And we'll just go over to you in a second, Tom, so you can introduce yourself. For those who've never watched the show before and have stumbled across it thinking, what on earth am I doing here? Well done. You have just stumbled across very valuable continual professional development in bite-sized chunks over lunch. That's what we're all about. You are very welcome to add questions, to sit back and just listen in. But the whole premise of this is to give you something that you can learn from and use in your career. So Vanessa, Melinda, do you want to do a quick intro to you two, and then we'll hand over to Tom, who's going to be talking to us today, as I said, about hypnotic leadership, explaining what clinical hypnosis is and isn't, why it's so important right now to understand conversational hypnosis, and he's going to be providing some simple techniques and tips and tools that we can use from today. So we're really excited. But before we come to you, Vanessa, can you speak? And is it all okay?
Will the audio work this week after
It's
4 weeks?
It's working. Yeah.
Somebody tell me that it's, if anyone is listening, and I'm sure there's one or two of you out there, please let me know if my microphone is actually working this week. So I'm going to keep this really quick because I'm absolutely fascinated in today's subject. I really want to know about hypnosis because it's something I have never done and know nothing about. So I'm a marketer, business to business marketing, bringing revenue and revitalization to business brands. Melinda, who are you?
Hi there. My name is Melinda Ward. I am the Director of Consulting Solutions and Managed Services for Helm 360. And sorry, I do have a feline overlord who's joined us. He's Alfie, my senior house panther. And yes, please jump in the comments and let us know where you are connecting from. And if you have any questions throughout the course of the show, please drop them in the comments. And just so you know, if you don't see comments from everybody, that's just because we stream live to about 12 or 13 channels, and you'll see the comments from your stream alone, but we see all of them. So we know you're out there. Kind of like Santa Claus, but more seasonal.
Thanks,
Who are
Melinda.
you, Sarah? Who are you?
So let us know where you're connecting from, and throughout the course of the show, feel free to drop in comments and queries as we go.
Fabulous. Tom, thank you so much for joining us today. I have known you for many years. I know how amazing you are, and I'm really delighted you could join us on the show today. I've learned so much from you, and I know just even in this short 30-minute segment, people are going to take something today that they're going to be find really, really useful. So tell us a little bit about who you are. It's a bit of a Cilla Black moment. What's your name and where do you come from? Which is apt because people might detect where you come from as you speak.
Yeah, I think it's not hard to spot my dulcet Scouse tones. So yeah, I'm from Liverpool. But I've lived in Liverpool most of my life, moved away a lot of the time, but I always seem to end up back here. So I think my heart, possibly my subconscious, is telling me something. So yeah, I spent first 18 years of my life in the pharmaceutical industry, mostly on the sales side, did a bit of marketing, ended up the last 5 years of what I call my corporate career as head of training. Set up my first company in 2008, which is TLP, Leadership People. And that's pretty much what we've been doing for the last 15 years. So specialize in leadership and management training and coaching. And that can be anything from like a one-day leadership program looking at a specific element of leadership through to the longest program we did was 2 years. That was with pharmacists up in Scotland, which is a lot of, classroom training plus coaching in between. And yeah, I mean, back in, I think 2008, when I set up the company, prior to doing that, when I was head of training, I had a lot of companies coming in to me saying that they were an NLP training company or an NLP coach.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, yeah, I kind of get it. I know a little bit about it. When I was on the other side of the table and I was talking to heads of training or, HR directors or whatever, so many people said to me, are you NLP qualified? And I was like, what is it with this NLP stuff? So I went off and did my first practitioner course in 2008. Thought, yeah, I can see how this works, how it kind of, helps, particularly with communication. So anybody in sales, leadership and management, pretty much anybody who, has to talk to anybody else as part of their business or daily life, it works. And then over the years, kind of got more and more badges. So became a business practitioner, master practitioner. Went off and did my training in America with one of the co-creators, Dr. Richard Bandler. So I started running my own training courses. Then actually got invited onto a mentorship with Richard. So I had the man himself as my mentor for a year, which is pretty special. So I am the only UK-based trainer of NLP that's been trained and mentored by the man himself. And through that, got interested in and introduced to clinical hypnosis as well, because the two work together in the way that they work with the subconscious. One of Richard's kind of right-hand people in the UK, a lady called Tina Taylor. I had her as a mentor for a year after I worked with Richard. And that's why I learned some of my clinical hypnosis. And I really did it purely out of interest to begin with. I wasn't thinking of it in any kind of, commercial or monetized way. And then as soon as I was qualified and people knew, I got the usual requests. Can you help me stop smoking? Can you help me lose weight? All that kind of stuff. And it kind of took off from there. And then I was telling Vanessa earlier, probably about a year before COVID hit and we went into lockdown, I was noticing a lot of the associates that were working for me and some of my colleagues in the coaching world, we just noticed that there was a lot more people coming into coaching sessions that were stressed out, that were overwhelmed, that were burnt out. And it was great for me and people like me to have that in our toolbox to be able to say, okay, let's kind of put the performance coaching on hold for a minute. You're a human being. Let's deal with this stuff. We've helped a lot of people in that kind of respect within that kind of business coaching or performance coaching setup, if you like.
Yeah. So just for people that don't know and are new to this, NLP, I don't know what I've been trained in, is a neuro-linguistic programming. Okay. So people can look up what that is. But what an amazing career you've had doing this, and to be trained and mentored by Richard Bandler himself is incredible. So congratulations. So we're seeing a lot more stress, a lot more anxiety because of what's going on in the world since COVID, and then with the financial crisis and the war in the Ukraine, everything's going on. So what is clinical hypnosis and what isn't it? So we understand it first. Can you give us an idea about that?
So it's really a way of working with your subconscious, because that's where so much stuff goes on. I always explain to people that in relative terms, your subconscious is the size of a beach ball, whereas your conscious mind or your conscious brain is the size of a golf ball. So there's all this stuff going on in the background that we're not aware of, hence it's subconscious. And a good clinical hypnosis practitioner or hypnotherapist will be able to kind of work with that, because we've got all this stuff going on that we're not even aware of. And sometimes that's good stuff, so we have I talk about strategies. So you have strategies for happiness, relaxation, confidence, all those kind of the good things that you want in your life. But you also have strategies for the unhelpful things like stress, like anxiety, like post-traumatic stress, like phobias, like imposter syndrome, which I kind of know is a big thing for you, Sarah. So if we can tap into that, we can work out what the good programs are. We can run them a lot more frequently, so you're a lot happier, a lot more successful, a lot more confident. But just like any computer program, or any strategy, if we can identify the unhelpful ones, we can either delete them or we can change them. And so that's what a good clinical hypnotherapist will do. In terms of what clinical hypnotherapy isn't, there are some very common myths out there. So first of all, you go and see a clinical hypnotherapist like me, you're not going to be asleep, you're not going to be unconscious, you're not going to be out of it. You're just going to be a lot more relaxed, because actually when you're under, if that's the phrase you want to use, there may be times when I want to ask you questions and I need information from you, and that can be information that comes verbally, but it can also be the non-verbal cues that we're trained to look out for, that will tell me a lot about what's going on in your subconscious at the time. So you're fully aware of everything that's going on. You're just in a much more relaxed state. The second myth I think about hypnosis is that you cannot be hypnotized to do anything that you do not want to do. One of the primary functions of your subconscious is to protect you. So you cannot be hypnotized to anything you want to do. If you could, if it was that easy, I would have got to know a millionaire many years ago, and I would have hypnotized them to give me all of their money.
So we're not going to be like during the show running around clucking like chickens, or
only if you want to, Melinda. So this is this point comes up all the time. People say, "Oh,
I want to."
You would.
We can do that, but when you see people go on stage, and this is usually with stage hypnosis, which is very different to clinical hypnosis, those people who stand on one leg and cluck like a chicken, they're happy to do that. So the subconscious doesn't perceive it as a threat, which is why they go and do it. If they weren't happy to do it, they wouldn't do it. So it's very much working with what you want to do. Your subconscious, it will do as much as it can to protect you, and sometimes it actually does the wrong thing for the right reason. So you get stressed out, or you get a phobia about stuff, which is kind of the right response, but it's or rather the wrong response, but for the right reason. So you won't be you're hypnotized to do anything you don't want to do.
Should we just got a question in from Dan?
Yeah, so he was just saying, is this the same NLP that they use in the sales world?
I suspect it is. I mean, we use a lot of NLP in the sales training that we do. We use a lot of NLP because, things like building rapport quickly, what we call representational systems. So some of us are very visual, some of us are very auditory, some are very kinesthetic. If you can spot those language patterns in your customers or your clients, and then you actually start to them in those language patterns, it becomes very powerful, allows you to build rapport a lot more quickly. So yeah, Dan, I suspect it is the same type of NLP. I mean, NLP is pretty much NLP. There are different gurus, different schools of NLP, if you like now. So you've got Richard Bandler.
Which is neuro-linguistic programming, isn't it?
Sorry, I keep using too many TLAs, don't I?
Yeah. Very good.
So yeah, NLP, yeah. Not to be confused with natural language processing. So if you do Google NLP, you'll probably get a lot of hits on natural language processing, which is a computer thing or AI thing. So yeah, it all started with Richard Bandler, John Grinder, and then since then you've had people like Robert Dilts, Tad James, Tony Robbins. I mean, I think everybody knows Tony Robbins. He was trained by Richard. So there's lots of different schools out there, but they all pretty much go back to the same kind of theory, the same kind of techniques.
I think a lot of us, when you learn about it and you've been in sales, you realize how much you've learned as a salesperson is actually NLP based, but you're not, like you said, you're not consciously aware of it. You're kind of unconscious to do it. When you become consciously aware of it and can use it in interviews, in sales calls, in meetings, in difficult situations, my goodness, you can become powerful, can't you? So with that in mind, conversational hypnosis is a powerful tool. That's something else you were going to be talking about. So can you tell us a bit more about that? Maybe there's an example of where, well, I don't know if you're allowed to give an example, obviously no names, but of where you've used it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a conversation hypnosis is very much about having a conversation. But the way that we've been trained as hypnotherapists who've kind of studied conversational hypnosis, we're very much listening for what we call your narrative. Okay, so if you come in and say that you want to give up smoking, I want to dig underneath that, because the fact that you're smoking is probably just a symptom of something else. It could be stress related. It could be, whatever. And I want to find out why it's important to you, where it's come from. So if you say to me, well, it's important because I want to watch my grandkids grow up and I want to be healthy and blah, blah, blah. What I'll then start to do, and I think what a good hypnotherapist will do, is they start to feed that back to you, okay? And they start to talk about what you've just been talking about, but it sounds conversational,
Okay.
There are some hypnotherapists you'll go in, you'll sit down, and as soon as you go in there, right, okay, close your eyes, relax, go deep inside, blah, 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 which is great. It's an approach. It works for some people. For me, that's probably the last 15 minutes of the session, and we're going to have like a 90-minute session together. So we'll spend the first hour and 15 minutes talking about what's important to you, where's it come from, what's going to happen when you stop doing that thing that you don't want to do, or actually when you start doing something that you do want to do, like go to the gym or exercise or whatever. So it's very much conversational, but I'm listening for all those little clues. And more importantly, what I'm listening for is, what's the root cause? What's actually caused that thing that you want to change in your life? Because most of the time people come in and talk about their symptoms.
So, and this is really useful in leadership coaching and in group training programs, because it's effectively really good active listening, isn't it? You're actively. Oh, very funny. God, you just got me. He's always doing this to me. Not on air, Tom.
Too late.
Okay, well done. Yes, you got me. But it's a really good active listening, part of active listening, but then being able to use that in a way that helps people hear it. So in a leadership coaching, in a business coaching environment, it's so super powerful, because people don't realize what they're thinking about when they're talking about something. It really helps trigger all of that, doesn't it?
It doesn't, again, it really is active listening, because we're not just listening to the words, we're looking at the body language, we're listening to tonality. And I don't know if you remember when you did your training, Sarah. So one of the big things that you study in NLP is the Milton model, okay, which is based on the work of Milton Erickson, who was probably one of the world's finest psychiatrists, but also hypnotherapists. And when you understand how that works, you really do start to hone in your listening skills and your conversational language skills. Erickson could help people recover from some, really serious stuff that had gone on, whether it was depression or whatever, just by talking to them. So in that context, in a business context, you're talking to your customers, your clients, you're talking to the people in your team that follow you, that you lead, having that really, really acute sense of listening, but listening to the words, the tone, the body language is so powerful.
Super powerful. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's
Sorry.
also useful, not just in a coaching standpoint, like where in a conventional way, but also for management and team leaders and in a corporate environment, because so many times you find that corporate management is not, well, everybody says, oh, my management doesn't listen to me, don't they? And that's one of the key things that makes people frustrated in their job, is saying, oh, I've raised these issues, but nobody's heard them and nobody's listened to me. And so these tools are really universal. They're not only for people who are in a specific coaching role, but I think they're quite useful also for management roles, but even just work, spending time with your friends and help, if someone's going through a tough time, do you immediately jump in and try to solve their problem, or do you give them the space to speak?
Good point.
And
Again, it's absolutely, so like I said before, any role, any function where you have to communicate with other people, these skills are absolutely crucial. I think the only time you probably wouldn't use this is if you were like a lighthouse operator, something working on your own 90% of the time. Even then, you still have to speak to people on the radio. So and they do become very much life coaching skills as well. I'm single, I've never been married, but I've lost count of the amount of times ex-girlfriends have said to me, stop coaching me and stop counseling me. I just need an answer.
Do you think that's why you're still single then? Just saying Tom's single if anyone's out there. This wasn't meant to be a dating show, buddy. Come on.
I know, I am undateable, I think, but they
There's
are
a program for that.
Yeah. But they are great they're great life coaching skills or just life skills to have. And I've often said, and I'll stand by this, we should teach NLP in schools. I think it's that powerful in terms of how it helps people understand their mindset, what's going on, how they can relate to other people. I just think it's really, really powerful stuff, definitely.
Oh, absolutely. I wish they taught that in schools.
So what are some really, just mindful that it's so interesting. It's such a big topic. We're not going to have enough time to get to all of the bits and bobs of it. But what are some examples or things that, like, how can we all approach this sort of, concept? How do we start employing some of these skills at obviously a very fundamental level?
And whilst you're doing that, can you also I know we're short on time, but why is it so important now? I mean, it's always been important to do this if you're a leader or a business owner or just a human being in life, but why now more than ever?
I think now more than ever, we've been through a huge fundamental change in the way that the world works as a result of everything that happened with COVID. And a lot of people were kind of stressed out before that. Certainly one of the big sectors that we work with, the NHS, that was a stressful place to work before COVID. It's even more so now. Our lives have been turned upside down. We're coping with a huge amount of change that we've never had to cope with before. And that's really stressful for a lot of people. And I think it's great to have the resources to be able to kind of sit people down and even if it's just at a very basic level, just like you said before, sit and listen to them. Because sometimes just talking about stuff really helps people to, get a lot off their chest and feel better about it. If you look, unfortunately, things like the NHS, mental health is the poor relation. So if you want to go and get, a consultation with a psychiatrist or a counsellor or something within the NHS, you're probably waiting at least 6 months now. So having access to those resources, I think, is really important because we're seeing such a massive increase in the amount of mental health challenges that exist in the world and certainly within the UK because people are more stressed. Organizations across every sector, they're expecting more results for less resource because of the way the world's going at the moment. And that puts a lot of pressure on people. That puts pressure on the leaders in an organization, which then filters down no matter how good those leaders are and how much they try to protect their people. So being able to kind of help people, I think, with almost things that traditionally didn't come up in the workplace, or if they did, they weren't discussed. It was very much taboo. Certainly, back in my day and possibly yours, where mental health was always kind of swept under the carpet. There's a growing, I think, awareness and acceptance now that it's really important to deal with it. And I think that's really important. So having the skills to do that is, I think, critical at the moment. I don't think we've seen anywhere near yet the kind of the tsunami that's coming with the kind of the fallout from what happened with COVID and the way the world's changed, in the last year or two.
Yeah, God, that's really good. So sorry, back to Melinda's question about the things we can do. Is this where we start to quack, please?
We can get you quacking. What does a duck sound like, Sarah?
Quack, quack, you see? I don't mind. I'll even do the movements too.
Yeah. So I think there are some very simple things that you can do. You don't have to go and see a therapist for it. I'm a big fan of journaling. I think you get yourself a notebook. It doesn't have to be an expensive journal, and there are lots of those out there. You can write things down, and you can be as explicit as you want to be. You can swear, you can rant, you can just getting it off your chest like that is cathartic. Now, I've been doing this for 30 odd years. It's something I started doing in my early 20s. It's kind of just something that I found very, very beneficial. And get it all out there, get it off your chest rather than trying to bottle it up. Journaling, I think, is really, 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 really helpful. So that, I think, is a very simple thing that we can all do. Nobody's ever going to see it unless you choose to show it to them. And you can, like I say, you can swear, you can be, as horrible about other people or as other situations as you want to be, just to get it out there. Okay, but then go back and look at it, and pick the learning from it. Okay, what does that teach you about that person, about that situation? If that situation or that person comes into your life again, how do you handle it? What do you do differently to get a better result? So I think journaling is really, really important and very, very helpful.
And it stops you from reacting, doesn't it? I've done it recently where I reacted to something and I thought, if I go back and deal with this now, it's not going to be good. So I thought about it. I wrote it down. I ended up writing a letter. And I did send it, but it wasn't the letter I'd originally written.
That's a great technique, isn't it? We talk about this all the time in business. Somebody sends you an email and you're like, oh my God. Yeah, and you start to type a reply straight away. So, if you go do that, type the email, go back to 24 hours later, and like you say, you probably change it.
Yeah.
So yeah, and interesting. There's a technique which is more of a CBT, so cognitive behavioral therapy technique, which is called the ABC technique. So basically, write down, what was the activating event? What caused your reaction? The B is the behavior. So how did you behave in that situation? And the C is change. So what would you change next time around if you had to deal with that situation again? Really simple process, but again, very, very therapeutic.
Yeah. Very good. I know, Vanessa, you're a mad keen journaler, aren't you? You've got, you're good at capturing stuff.
I do. I've got my kind of fancy, expensive book. My very planner where, we, assess each month, assess each day, big learnings and all the rest of it. And I find it hugely valuable. So some other comments in the comments. So a LinkedIn user who we don't know says that journaling is good, but how can you ensure nobody sees it? Anna Maria, who's just joined, loves journaling. She says it's been a huge game changer. And she has a challenge for herself to journal daily until her birthday on the 1st of April, if anyone wants to join. And then Danny, it must be Sultan who was the LinkedIn user. There must be some sort of Snapchat for writing, how do you make sure nobody sees it, or you password protect it if it's electronic. There you go. Yeah. Danny being useful as always.
If you do it electronically, hopefully you've got it set up. I sometimes write on my iPad. I've got Notability, which is an app, so I'll sometimes write in there. Hopefully, though, you're gonna keep your journal somewhere safe where people won't read it. And if you're living in a house with a partner and your kids and whatever, hopefully you trust that they're not going to go and read it. Yeah, but if you think that they are, then maybe there's something there you need to address.
Good point. So if we can do journaling, what else can we do?
Okay, so really simple technique that I'm always keen to share with people because it's a little bit naughty, but it has the right results. Okay, so we talk about a pattern interrupt.
We like naughty.
Yeah. So anytime
my eyes light up.
Yeah. Well, anytime you become aware of those negative thoughts, those negative emotions running through your body, and it happens all the time. Because we're very much thinking creatures. Okay. Thoughts pop into our head all the time that we're not aware of. But as soon as you become aware of those negative thought processes, which could be about you, so you're in a critic kicks in, could be about somebody else, could be about a situation, then I use a very simple but a very effective, what I call a pattern interrupt with people. So as soon as you become aware of those thoughts, there's a simple mantra that you can use. Now, for the sake of being polite, I'm not going to use the word that I normally use, which would be the F word. But I teach people to do this all the time. And I've taught kids to do this. It works really well with kids because it is so naughty. I get permission off their parents first for them to swear. But it's basically a simple mantra, which is shut the truck up. Okay. And you start exactly. So Vanessa, you're laughing already. We haven't even done this. Okay. But this is the result we're looking for, because once you start to do this, as soon as you begin to smile, as soon as you begin to laugh, you change completely your internal physiology. So you start to release all of your happy hormones like dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin. You start to suppress all of your stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. Okay. But it's not just enough to say it once. You have to get into that habit of a mantra. Okay. So I reckon the three ladies on the screen, so Sarah, Vanessa, Melinda, you can do this with me. Okay. So we'll start off slowly. We'll see how fast we can go. So you ready? So it's basically shut the truck up and we'll keep repeating it. Okay. So shut the truck up. Shut the truck up. So
It's kind of a tongue twister now.
well, it is. Okay, so do you reckon we can do it faster? I think you can. Okay, so see if you can keep up with me. Okay, deep breath. So shut the truck up. 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 Shut the truck up.
You're well practiced, mate.
Very well practiced.
This is not my first rodeo, as they say. Okay.
Do you say this all the time as people are speaking to you? Shut the truck up.
Oh, in my head, yeah. As I say, it has that effect. So first of all, it's a little bit naughty, it's a little bit funny. So you start to laugh, you start to smile. That changes your internal physiology. Secondly, because you're focused on what you're saying, you can't have the negative thoughts going through your head at the same time. Okay, so it interrupts that pattern. Okay, and also when you get to the point where you can do the it becomes hypnotic because it's very rhythmic, and a big part of hypnosis is that rhythm. So it's a very simple technique. You know, just be careful about where you use it. You know, I'm sure my neighbors think that I'm just some kind of like, very, very naughty person, because I'm often telling myself to shut the F up. You know,
they'd be absolutely right for those.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I know you were going to mention breathing. I'm also very conscious of time. We've got loads of comments coming through. So literally 10 seconds breathing, and then we'll go to the comments. Yeah.
Okay, so literally very quick breathing technique. So we call it a 5-5-5. So deep breath in through your nose for the count of 5. Hold it for 5. And then we're out for 5.
Sorry, I can hear the cat purring.
Your cat purring, which is a great sign of how relaxed the cat is. That's fantastic. I mean, just if you've got pets, they're so tactile, and if you can use any kind of kinesthetic stimulus, take away your stress or your anxiety, that I think is huge. Okay, so again, breathe in for 5. Hold it for 5. Breathe out for 5, let all the way out. Okay, now this time what I want you to do, on the hold, so when you hold of your breath for 5, I want you to imagine you've got a pair of glasses on the top of your head. I want you to look up through the glasses, but you cannot tip your head back because the glasses will fall off. Okay, so breathe in for 5. Hold it for 5, and once you're holding for 5, look up through the top of your head. And then release for 5. And as you release for 5, you can just start to look out again. So it's just a simple 5-5-5. But you get plenty again. You get plenty of oxygen.
It says shut the trunk up rather than shut the trunk
whatever
up.
Works for you.
And Danny, obviously inspired by our said chuckle vision vibes.
You to me, 100%.
From you to me, there we go. And Anna does have glasses on the top of her head. There you go. So she's halfway there.
She should be a past master at this then.
Lockable diaries are still here. There you go. So that's the final comment.
Brilliant.
So we are beyond, but
we are. Can I just ask everybody who's on here at the moment, if you've enjoyed this, can you just put another note wherever you're writing this in, saying great session, highly recommend you watch this, because there are so many people that could do with listening to how to bring down their anxiety levels right now. We want to get this out there. So if you're happy to do that, please do, because it will just set it up. You know what it's like on LinkedIn. You've got to have lots of comments for it to go crazy. And if you want to get hold of Tom, he's on LinkedIn. Tom Phillips, you are TLP, the what? Remind me.
The leadership
people. And yeah, do get in touch. Thank you, Zoe. Thanks for joining us, Zoe. So we didn't say hello to Eddie, but both Vanessa and I waved at you. Thank you for coming, Tom. Thank you. We will so have you back. And thank you for joining us, everyone. We will see you next week. We don't exactly know what we're doing next week yet. We probably do.
It'll be fabulous, whatever it is.
It's going to be amazing. It always is. But we'll see you next week.
Check
have a
our
good
feed
one, everybody.
for updates. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.